Hey everybody, it's Matt Robinson. Welcome to another edition of the Writer's Block. We recently had Dr. Bruce Cohen talking about how to stick to your workouts, being the new year and all. But to stick to your workouts, you need to fuel your body and your brain, and that's why I'm really glad to have our guest today. Dr. Shawn Talbott is a psychonutritionist. He integrates nutrition, biochemistry, and psychology to help people look, feel, and perform at their best. He's a scientist and entrepreneur who has written academic textbooks, produced an award-winning documentary, several best-selling books that are translated into multiple languages, including this one, Mental Fitness, which we're going to focus on today. He is also the Chief Science Officer for Amare Global, the mental wellness company, and runs the Three Waves Wellness Center, where he educates guests on how to flourish and trains students as certified mental wellness coaches. He's an endurance fanatic with dozens of Ironman and triathlon titles to his credit, and we're glad that he either ran, biked, or swam here today. Welcome, Dr. Talbott.
Thanks, Matt. It's great to be here.
So, I think a lot of our viewers have heard about this brain-body connection. It seems to be kind of the cutting edge of science and where a lot of the elements that you study and work with fit. Where did that discovery come, and how has it influenced the health and fitness world?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've known about this brain-body connection for centuries, millennia actually. So like one of the old chestnuts is that Hippocrates, the father of medicine, said that all disease begins in the gut. And I remember, when I was in graduate school, we used to look at that and just poo-poo it and just be like, oh, isn't that quaint, right? Because there was no science for it, right? It's something that they observed thousands of years ago, that if your gut was off in a variety of ways, your whole body was off and your mind was off. And so, that's been observed. But it's only in the last 2 decades maybe that we can actually measure what's going on there. So we can measure the bacteria in the gut when very precisely we can say these bacteria are related to depression, these bacteria are related to aging, these ones are related to digestion. And so it's getting to the point where this new science can really quantify and allow us to go in and manipulate these bacteria to help people feel better. So it's exciting time.
But with what I understand to be millions of bacteria in our bodies, how can you actually eat certain things or prescribe certain things to really focus on a certain set that may lead to a certain symptom?
Yes, exactly. And it's not just billions, it's trillions, and it's probably close to hundreds of trillions. Wow. So the bacteria in our gut actually outnumber the body cells that we have. So we are both more bacteria than we are human when you look at it on a cell-to-cell basis. It really is kind of mind-blowing. And so it is getting to the point now where we can say, if somebody is feeling depressed, we can help them eat this way, or we can educate them to eat that way, and we can treat their depression with diet. We can either, if they're predisposed to depression, we can have them eat a certain way. So for example, the Mediterranean diet is a style of eating that has a lot of good research on it. We can take people who are predisposed to depression and have them eat Mediterranean style, and they never develop depression. We can have people who have depression, they're diagnosed with major depressive disorder. We can change their diets away from a standard American diet, which is fast food and processed food and things like that. Put them on a more whole foods diet where they're eating more fruits and vegetables and lots of fiber and things like that. And it can take them from being depressed to no longer being depressed. It's really mind-blowing now.
Well, just as a side note, where do you think that the American diet came from? Wouldn't it be nice to have the Mediterranean diet, or all the other ones that are available that we're known for? This unhealthy.
I know.
A lot of the research was done here. I mean, the Framingham Medical Study and things of those. Yeah. So why is it our culture that gravitated towards being gravitational?
Yeah, I don't know. And it's just processed food. It's convenient. It's delicious. Let's be honest, right? It tastes good. It's convenient, and our sort of like 24/7 fast, hurry. Mentality, that diet just fits in a certain sense, right? But now that it's spreading all around the world, right? This standard American diet is just a standard processed food diet that, I travel a lot for work, I travel a lot for the book, and if I'm in Turkey, I see a processed food diet. If I'm in Europe, which is supposed to be where the Mediterranean diet comes from, you're seeing more and more processed. I travel to Asia, you're seeing Kentucky Fried Chicken and McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts, everywhere you go. And it's not to say I'm not a nutrition zealot, right? That you can't ever have those kinds of foods. But if you're having that as your standard everyday meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it leads to a change in the gut, and that leads to adverse changes throughout the entire body and mind.
Yeah, I just saw that Krispy Kreme opened in Paris recently.
Oh, great.
Yeah. now we know why they hate us, but anyway. So psychonutrition.
Right.
How did that field come together, and how did that become your particular focus?
Yeah, so that's a brand new scientific discipline. When I was in grad school, that didn't exist. It was so I'm trained in nutritional biochemistry. That's what my PhD is in. But the work that I do nowadays is called either nutritional psychiatry, nutritional psychology, psychonutrition. There's lots of terms for it. But it's this idea that if we eat a certain way, we can help people feel better. If we eat a certain way, and like the standard American diet, it can lead you to feel worse. And so, as this is getting unpacked, you're seeing entire academic departments at universities being established around psychonutrition, around nutritional psychology. You see academic organizations, right? There's an organization now called the International Society for Nutritional Psychology Research that didn't exist 10 years ago, but now it's one of the leading scientific organizations, because what we're finding is that how we change the bacteria in our gut, what we call the microbiome, the most direct way to change that is with food. And so if we can directly take this food, good or bad, change the bacteria, good or bad, it changes the signals that go out to the rest of the body. So your gut makes 90% of your serotonin, which most people are going to realize is the neurotransmitter of happiness. If we can make 90% of our serotonin here, we can be happier. Or 70% of our dopamine, that's for motivation. Or 50% of our GABA, that's for relaxation. So it really is allowing us to say, hey, this food isn't just food, it's information that goes throughout the entire body. And we can have good information that leads us to feel terrible, or we can have better information that helps us feel better.
So what would the difference then be between eating foods that give us the enzymes and hormones that make us feel good, and eating something maybe that's processed but that tastes good and makes us feel happy because we enjoy it?
Right, temporarily happy, exactly. So the biggest change is that we're not getting enough fiber, right? That's probably the biggest problem with what we call the standard American diet, processed food diet, fast food diet. It's devoid of fiber. So that's sort of a double whammy of a problem. So the reason that's bad is because fiber is what your bacteria want. That's their food. So when we eat fiber, humans don't use fiber, but it's good for the bacteria, and if it's good for the bacteria, it's good for the human. So if we're not getting fiber, what we end up getting is we don't get the good bacteria. So we don't get the production of serotonin for happiness and dopamine for motivation, etc. But we also, if we're eating a lot of sugary processed foods, we end up growing a population of bacteria that is more likely to make inflammatory compounds that can lead us to feel more depressed. So when we're changing somebody away from standard American diet, more of a whole foods diet, we're helping them feel less bad because we're lowering inflammation, and we're also helping them feel more good because we're helping to increase the production of neurotransmitters. So if you can do both of those simultaneously, replace a little bit of your fast food diet with a whole foods diet, you're going to feel less bad, so less irritable and less tense and less stressed, but you're also going to feel more good, more happy, more resilient. And in our clinical trials, we can actually measure those kinds of things separately from each other. They're both good, but getting them both at the same time is even better.
Right. So what first got you interested in this field?
Well, in the early part of my career, I was what you might call a sport nutritionist. So with my PhD in nutritional biochemistry, I was doing a lot of work with U.S. ski team and U.S. track and field association, and Olympic training centers and stuff like that, trying to use these principles we're talking about to get the athletes to feel less bad, less stressed out, more calm, more resilient, so they can bounce back. And if we could get them to have a mental edge, it was good for their physical performance. So like I say to people all the time, the person who wins the gold medal at the Olympics isn't in better physical condition than the silver medalist or the bronze medalist or the person who didn't even make the finals, right? They're all in fantastic physical condition, but the one that won the gold probably had a mental edge that allowed them to get that little 0.5% better out of their performance. So I was doing that kind of work. And then right before my first book came out, my younger brother died of a drug overdose. And so he was always this sort of anxious guy. He always kind of used the drugs to calm himself and self-medicate his anxiety. And so I thought, maybe we could take these principles that we're using with the elite level athletes and kind of mainstream it. So like the average person that's not trying to win a gold medal, they just want to feel better, right? They just want to like perform at their peak potential. And so it got me to sort of shift gears, and 14 books later, this is where we are.
So you said 14 books?
Right.
So writing, was that always a passion of yours, or did it just become a great way to spread the word? Or both?
A little of both, right? I love to educate, right? And writing is one way to educate people about what the new science is doing. But writing for me is also how I figure out if I really understand something. So if I write a paragraph and I read it back and I say, well, that's nonsense in there. Like, I don't understand it well enough, right? I have to understand it at a level where I can explain it to somebody. And writing books is how I sort out all the science. I'll read a scientific paper or 100 scientific papers, and then I distill it down into a book for the general public. And if I can't write it in a clear manner, I don't understand it very well. So I have to understand it more and more and more, and writing is my process to work that all out in my brain.
How many are you working on currently?
I have another one that's maybe a quarter of the way done right now. It's taking the supplement piece of this and going into a deeper dive to say, okay, we know that saffron can help with ADHD, for example. What's the biochemistry of that? And where do we find saffron in the world? And how is it extracted? And how is it grown? And who's growing it? So it's really a deep dive into those individual ingredients and their biochemistry and their ethnobotany and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think a lot of those things get lost, but especially in our country where just you go to the market and it's all right there.
Right,
really
exactly. Right.
Because
where did this come from?
Right,
Yeah.
can make a big difference
Yeah,
in terms
who
of
grew
how the
this
people are treated and the nutrition.
100%.
And, what it's being grown near and cross-contamination, all those things. Yeah.
Right.
Like you said, with the convenience of the fast food, even not so fast food can be good or bad.
Right, exactly.
Education.
And there's a whole population of people now that want to know, where does their food come from? Where do their ingredients come from? Are they pure? Are they, all that kind of stuff. So that's what this book is about.
So with all the studying you've done, why this 14th, 15th infinite book?
Right. So the reason I wrote this book was because of all the new research around the microbiome, right? This idea that how you feel is not just in your head, it's also in your gut. And if we can change what's happening in the gut, we can change your predisposition to depression. We can help with energy levels. We can help you with your mental focus. I talk to people in this book about something I call the mental wellness continuum, which is wherever you are on that continuum. You might be depressed, and if you are, at the low end of the continuum, what we're going to try to do with the recommendations in the book is get you to feel normal again, right? Use diet and exercise and lifestyle interventions to get you out of that depressive state where you feel like you can function at a regular level. We also have the high end of the continuum where you might be killing it every day. Everything is great, but that kind of person sometimes just wants to up their game. They want to level up a little bit. So that elite level performer, we can do a few things in the gut, in the brain, to help them reach that next level of performance. But where most people are is in the middle of the continuum. They're the person that says, I feel okay. I don't have any problems. I'm not depressed. I don't have, anxiety disorders or anything like that. But I'm tired most days, or I have a little bit of brain fog, or I don't have the kind of resilience to go out there and start my own business, or whatever the case is, right? They just feel kind of blah. In the work that we do in positive psychology, that's called languishing, right? You're not quite depressed. You just kind of feel meh, so. That's where most people are these days, especially post-pandemic. And so people there, what we can do is help them feel better energy, less brain fog, better mental focus, so they can level up their game. So wherever you are on that continuum, we can use these same principles to get you to move to the next level and the next level and the next level.
So there's really entry points for anybody.
For anybody, yeah, exactly. And I hate, as a scientist, I hate to say like, here's this one solution that addresses all the problems that everybody has, right? It's not sort of like a panacea. But the new research is really showing us that if we take care of our gut and we nourish these bacteria, they're going to produce the right signaling molecules. They're going to help us be physically healthy, which is great, but also help us with mental fitness, which is how we reach that next level.
Right. So appreciating, as you just said, that you don't want to tout it as a panacea, are there some things that will help anybody? like that you would recommend no matter where they are on the continuum.
Yeah, exactly. So people don't even have to read the book to do this, right? You know, eat fewer Big Macs and donuts and things like that, right? But people understand that. Like people know that they're not supposed to eat a fast food diet, right? They don't need me to tell them that. But then what do they replace that with? So if they can just eat more fiber, that's going to help nourish the bacteria in the gut. If they can eat some fermented foods occasionally, you know, so like a yogurt, a kombucha, a kimchi, those kinds of things, those have a profound effect on the metabolism of the microbiome. And so if you're going to the store to look for your yogurt now, look at the back of the panel and make sure you're not choosing one of those high sugar yogurts that has 35 grams of sugar. That's how much sugar you get in a Coca-Cola, right? So I tell people, you know, get a non-sweetened and then put in your own maple syrup or your own little scoop of jelly or something like that, right? So fiber, fermented foods, and then the other one is these compounds called flavonoids, which are compounds that you see in fruits and vegetables, berries and apples and asparagus, and all the brightly colored fruits and vegetables have these plant compounds, flavonoids, phytonutrients, that can really protect what's happening in the gut. So fiber to grow the good guys, fermented foods to set up the right environment, and then these flavonoids to make sure that their metabolism is the right way. And you do that, you're gonna do 90% of what the book is talking about.
So it's like the three Fs.
The three Fs, exactly.
Remember, everybody, you heard it here first. We put it together. So speaking about the food and the nutrition, you also work in the nutraceutical industry.
Right.
How has that influenced your research, and how has your research influenced what you try to create in that part of your life?
Yeah, so what I try to do with the nutraceuticals and the functional foods is to say, look, there's a lot of really good science here, and we can tell people, eat a better diet and get your 8 hours of sleep and make sure you're physically active every day and like all the things, right? But if you can get a food or a supplement that builds in some of this, so you can say, wait a minute, there are specific strains of bacteria, probiotic bacteria, that can help with stress or help with mood or help with irritability levels. Why don't we put those into a supplement and then put in some fibers that help with nourishing the bacteria, and then put in some of these flavonoids, for example, and then you have a cocktail of something that somebody can just plug into their life and say, wait a minute, I'll use this supplement along with my physical activity program, and I'll use it along with the dietary changes that I'm making, or I'll use a relaxation supplement to help me sleep better. You know, so I'm always cautious to say to people, all right, here's this product that I've formulated based on the science. I don't want them to just take the product and then sit back on their couch and go, okay, make
me better.
Yeah, now I'm going to eat everything I want and don't worry about my diet. No, the supplement is a way to sort of accelerate the other things that you're doing in your life. And if you do that, then you really see the benefits.
I mean, people need to look back at what supplement means. It goes along with.
Precisely,
right,
100%.
Right. Yeah, so I'm talking about supplements, I've been tangentially in the fitness industry and just aware of it. Sorry, Mike, let me pick this up again. I lost my question. I was doing it off. It's not here. See, I can't do it without a script. Then Matt says, okay. All right. About 10? Okay, all right, so I'm in the right spot. Okay. Just trying to think how to, I'll just go back to these. It wasn't coming fast enough. Okay, all right, so the nutrition is a key element, and having the supplements. What are some of the other fitness, exercise? I mean, is this a program people can do at any stage of life, even if they might have like a physical challenge or an injury or something of that sort?
Right. Yeah. So the way that I wrote the book is that it can be appropriate for anybody across that entire mental wellness continuum, right? But their objectives might be different, but the overall program is the same. So there's a whole chapter about nutrition. How to eat to nourish your entire gut-brain axis. There's a whole chapter about physical activity. So you don't have to start training for a marathon or something like that. It's just some principles about starting to move your body, exposing yourself to nature, making sure we foster our social connections, which is a huge part of how we improve our mental wellness. The supplement piece of it is something where for some people it might be the last piece of the puzzle, where they are doing the exercise and they are eating right or as well as they can, and they are getting 8 hours of sleep and they're doing all the things, and the supplement can be the last piece of the puzzle that brings it all together. But for a lot of people, it can be the first piece of the puzzle, where they might look and go, I just I just don't have the energy to even start exercising. Well, there's ways that we can nourish your gut with supplements, the right fibers and the right phytonutrients and things like that, so that now you have a little more energy level, and because of that, now you're more likely to be physically active. Or we can use supplements to help lower your stress levels, and then you're more likely to get a better night's sleep, and then, so you can see how it's sort of like the domino cascade happens from there. And we've actually put this to the test. We did a clinical trial a few years ago where we gave people supplements and we told them specifically, do not change your diet. Do not change your exercise regimen. Do not change anything. We just want to follow you over time, and we're going to measure your biochemistry. So we measured their microbiome, we measured their inflammatory indexes, we measured everything. And what we found was all the biochemistry changed in the right direction, right? Their microbiome got more resilient, and their inflammation came down, and their stress hormones came down, and their cholesterol came down, and they were healthier from a biochemical perspective. But the objective of the study was actually to see how they behaved. And we gave them risk trackers to track their physical activity and their sleep, and we had them write down what they were eating before and after, and subconsciously, they all chose a better diet. They were all more physically active, right? They had more steps on their tracker. They slept more minutes in deep sleep and REM sleep. So, the supplement wasn't the secret sauce, right? But it got them to change their diet because they felt better. It got them to sleep better. It got them to exercise more. And that's, like, if you can do that, that's all the difference for people, right? Because now they're in this habit of doing all the things they knew they were supposed to do in the first place, and now they're actually doing them.
So in terms of, one of the biggest elements of healthcare these days is prescription medicines.
Right.
You see all those commercials for, do you breathe air?
That's
then
right.
You probably are going to die.
And it's all these smiling people.
Yeah, side effects include, bleeding out of your eyes.
Right.
So can these things take the place of those things? Is that a dangerous claim that you're not willing to make?
Yeah, so that's dangerous territory, right? So there are lots and lots of clinical trials now showing equivalence, right? So, and I write about this a little bit in the book, that we can recommend a saffron extract that's been shown to be equivalent to Ritalin for helping people focus, or equivalent to Prozac for helping teenagers with depression. There are examples of specific probiotic bacteria, specific strains that are equivalent to different antidepressant drugs for helping people with anxiety and depression. There are examples of fibers, prebiotic fibers, that can help children with autism have better behavior, right? So it's great that those data exist, but it's also, it's scary for, you will get people who say, these natural ingredients will replace your pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals will always have a place. I don't think that place is necessarily plan A for most people. One of the reasons that I write books like this is to educate people to say, look, there are natural options that you might want to try first before you go to an option like that. So if somebody did have a mood issue, I would say, well, try one of these fibers, try one of these probiotic bacteria, try one of these natural solutions, and see if that gives you the resolution that you're looking for, your depression going down and your mood coming up. And if it does, great, you've just solved your problem. And if it doesn't, then you have that pharmaceutical option as plan B or plan C or plan D. Does that make sense?
So it could at least maybe lower the dependency and make it kind of less of a thing.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing that we see a lot is that people do try a pharmaceutical approach, and it helps them somewhat, but not all the way. And so you might have an example where you have somebody who's using a pharmaceutical regimen and a natural regimen side by side because they work on different levels. You might have somebody who's using a pharmaceutical regimen for a period of time, and now they want to drop off of it, step down to a lower dose or go to a weaker medicine or something like that. You can sometimes use these natural therapies as step-down therapy. So now they're able to come down to a lower level, and so they don't get the side effects of the medications.
Hmm. So you said that the book is for everybody, and I as someone who cares about fitness but isn't in the industry, I'm not an elite athlete by any stretch.
Right.
I definitely have seen the benefits. There's a lot of practices that I read about that I've taken on, and I do feel better. There's a little unpaid for endorsement, but you said that you don't have to be an elite athlete. But even if it's just a sample of one, you were once cited as being the world's fittest CEO.
Once upon a time,
how did that come about?
Yeah, there's an organization that holds a competition every year for the world's fittest CEO, and I went in one year and I came in second. And I thought the next year I would come back and try to do it again. But it's a competition where there's some biking and some running and some climbing and some obstacle course racing and things like that. And yeah, the second year I did it, I won, and allegedly I was the world's fittest CEO, which was a lot of fun because it's other CEOs from around the globe coming together and having friendly competition, and I try to practice what I preach. So yeah, it all came together that year. So it was a lot of fun.
Did you notice most of your colleagues were from a certain sector, or?
No, they were from all over the place. Some were in construction, some were in pharmaceuticals. Actually, I was probably the only natural products kind of person there. But yeah, they were all high performers, and of course, once everybody knew sort of the work that I did, they wanted tips, which I told them after the competition was over, right? I don't want to stack the deck against myself.
Share best practices, but you're willing to share best practices, but in a judicious way.
That's right.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, if there were one top takeaway that you wanted to leave our viewers and your readers with in terms of how to take that next step. Like I said, in our last show, we had a sports physiologist who talked about overcoming the excuses you may come up with
right.
for not taking care of yourself.
Right.
What is the one kind of bottom easy baby step that they can begin with, of course, before they read the rest of the book?
Yeah, I think the easiest one is, and this is kind of a fun little thing that I do with people, is it's called the 30 plant challenge. It's one thing for me to say, stop eating your standard American diet and go on this perfect Mediterranean plan, right? That's not going to work for a lot of people. But if you can do a 30 plant challenge, which is eating 30 different kinds of plants within a 7-day period, that has profound implications for what your microbiome does. It completely changes the diversity of the bacteria in your gut. That changes the biochemistry. You get more serotonin, so you're happier, more dopamine, so you're motivated, more GABA, so you're relaxed when you're stressed out. That can really change people to a point where after a week you feel good enough where now, like in our clinical trial, you are exercising more, and you are more likely to get a good night's sleep, and you are more likely to be able to deal with your stress in an appropriate way. So 30 Plant Challenge is a great way for people to start off this journey towards mental fitness. All
right, well, I guess we'll have to head down to the local produce section.
Exactly.
I got to learn how to get my garden together. Maybe that's the beginning of the next step in my journey. Thank you so much, Dr. Talbott. It's eye-opening. The book is absolutely fabulous. Great tips that really anyone can use. Highly recommend it. I'm sure you're working on 20 more books at the same time. So watch the space and keep watching The Writer's Block, and we'll hopefully see you next time.